Welcome to On Texas Football. Time for Second Watch with our Rod Babers, brought to you by our friends over at Duck Camp, the clothing and apparel company. We will talk a little bit more about them later. But Rod, 45-38 comeback win for the Longhorns, 17-point comeback, the most in a game since 2007. Big time effort for the Longhorns yesterday. You rewatched the game each and every Sunday and come up with a few nuggets for us to all think about. I got to start with this one because Sark said it on Monday of last week. We're going to change a little bit of the offense. Was the offense changed in your opinion or not?
I didn't feel like there were many drastic changes to the offense. I felt like there were tweaks and little modifications, right? I think the first pass that was 10 yards or more down the field for Arch came like late in the first quarter. So all those passes earlier on were like quick hitters and screens, try to get them in a rhythm. So I do kind of like that. You did have a lot of screens, which you've had the last 3 weeks. I don't want to say you've had only 10 20-plus yard passes based on Pro Football Focus numbers the last 3 games. And I would say you've had 22 screens thrown in that same time period. So it does seem to be a shift where not as many vertical concepts, at least he's not starting out that way. Obviously, when you end up down 17 points, you got to do what you got to do and open up the offense and do whatever it takes. But I think there were some modifications. I saw some different formations that they were trying to run out of, where they would motion the wide receiver to almost a sniffer. What I mean by sniffer, that's when they would put, sometimes they do it with an H-back or a tight end. They put them right there in right inside the tight end, like in that C or that D gap. And they would like motion the wide receiver in there and almost kind of basically make him a lead blocker and kind of him to block through the hole onto the second level. I hadn't really seen that. That seemed like it was relatively new and that was kind of cool. But I didn't see a ton of like drastic changes to the offense. I just think Sark has tweaked a couple of things to try to make sure that his offense can start smoother. And I don't, scoring a touchdown, obviously on first drive is definitely starting smoother.
Scoring a touchdown is big time. The big play to Wingo to open it up, that's what we've been calling for all year. But really the game as it dragged on, that offensive style flagged and just was not doing well or flailed, whatever you want to call it. And then in the later part of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, Sark seemed to simplify the offense, and you call it crisis mode, where Texas is behind. They just got to go chunk the ball around the yard. They seem to excel in that and put a lot of points on the board.
Yeah, there's a backyard element to it, it feels like, right? They abandon the running game. The scramble drill for Arch becomes even more of a weapon in that situation. His legs actually become that's usually your running game when you were in that crisis mode, as I call it. And I think we've seen it most of the time when Texas end up like down double digits, right? They've ended up down double digits to Ohio State. They've ended up down double digits to Florida. And in this game, down double digits at one point. And then you see, it seems like there's a sense of urgency that is almost liberating for the offense, where I don't know if it's the O-ish plan on offense or the hit the shan plan, but they're really good in those situations. I went back and calculated just those 3 games that I talked about, right? And I looked at the explosive plays, because that's what Texas offense has been missing, 20-plus yard bangers, right? You had 14 in those 3 games I mentioned, Ohio State, Florida, and also in this game versus Mississippi State, you had 14 20-plus yard plays. 10 of them came when crisis mode was activated. Crisis mode was activated in the Ohio State game when you were down 14 points, and that was where the start of the fourth quarter is when that happened, when you got down 14. In the game versus Florida, you ended up down to Florida 22-7 in last 20 minutes, last 5 minutes of the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And in this game versus Mississippi State, that 31-14, I believe, is the start of the fourth quarter. When you end up down 30-14, it's like, oh-ish, this thing might be over. And when that crisis mode is activated, Bobby, they're unbelievable. 10 of your 14 explosive plays in those 3 games came in crisis mode. Basically, less than 3.5 quarters of football out of those 12 quarters of football in those games. Well, 12 plus, because you got overtime thrown in there. You scored 45 points. Like, that's crazy. 45 points. And for this offense, in like 3.5 quarters. You wouldn't expect to see that against high-level opponents. So there is something to it. I think ultimately they get to abandon the running game as part of it. The scramble drill being a weapon, even in this game, scramble drill was a weapon. Remember that 60-yarder to Ryan Wingo? He's escaping, scrambling out of the pocket, finds him deep. He had a 13-yard run and I think a 15-yard run scrambling. Scramble drill is excellent for him. And also, I do think Sark, as a play designer, I think his play designs are more creative and imaginative in passing concepts than they are for running concepts. Just my personal opinion. So I think a lot is thrown into the fact that they're really effective in that mode. They got to find a way to bottle and replicate it, though. And I'm not sure how Sark is going to do that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think one of the things they did in the fourth quarter clearly is, it allowed the offensive line to understand rep after rep after rep that they were throwing the ball and identify where blitzers are coming from. If you're throwing it on first down, second down, and third down, and they're bringing blitz every single time, you're going to get used to what they're bringing from a blitz perspective. And when you solve it, then it gives a guy that Arch Manning was very accurate, by the way, on the day.
He was.
I think that there may have been one ball that was thrown at the feet of someone. But otherwise, he's very, very accurate yesterday. And I just think that they got some pass protection issues solved once they started going almost full on pass mode. And also you'll notice they went away from all these long developing back to the line of scrimmage play. It was just more
straight drop back.
Simplified it, sit there, put him in shotgun and let him pick it apart and go from there. And so there was some simplification. Now, you also wrote to me this morning that you want to go over this thing called playing the hits versus Mississippi State.
Yeah.
What were, in your opinion, the hits in this game?
One of my criticisms of Sark throughout the years has been, you'll see these really clever concepts and plays that well-designed, beautifully designed, that work really well. You can tell they're matchup specific, that he designed specifically for that defense and for that look. And then you won't see it again. I always joke with Sark and say, man, you don't like leftovers. I love leftovers. If it's good the day before, it's going to be even better the next day, right? And I feel like some of the plays for Sark, if it works one time early on in the first quarter, run it again. And, don't give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't assume that they're going to stop it until they actually do. And I've seen him get better at that. Clemson game was a great example in the playoff. The outside zone, they ran like 23 times, just kept running. That wheel route versus Ohio State, ran it again, right? They couldn't stop it. Let's run it again. And I think in this game, it was targets to motion. Remember that you started out the game. Target to motion. You motion Ryan Wingo, orbit motion, and you throw him that little lateral, boom, he goes 60-some yards. And I thought to myself, oh, man, it'd be nice if they would do that again. And they did. They actually ran a couple of targets to motion for him. Actually, one of those screens was actually dropped, I think, early in the game. But then they hit another big one on those kind of quick hitters. Now, it wasn't a target to motion, but in this game, he was 7 of 8 on targets to motion, guys. That's when you target a player in motion prior to the snap, at the time of the snap. And look at over 17 yards per attempt, because you had 3 huge, blockbuster explosive plays out of that. You had a first down rate of over 50%. You had an explosive play rate of 25%. And I think Sark realized early on, man, it works, and I'm going to keep doing it throughout the game. Now, I didn't always get you a big play, but I think he stayed faithful to the concept that whatever they're doing to adjust to motion is not necessarily working. I thought he should have did it more. He hadn't been that effective in targets to motion since the Georgia game, where he also was really faithful to it in the championship game, in the SEC championship. He ran, I think, 10 times targets to motion because he figured out it's working. They're not adjusting well to it. Another concept, that deep out. Remember that deep out they kept running in the high red area? And they ran it, I think they ran it 4 times, got 3 first downs on it, ran it twice on third down when you really had to have it. And it was only 1 incompletion out of those 4, and that was to Ryan Wingo. And I think the ball was a little high. I think Arch wanted him to kind of cut that route, or at least get out of his cut break a little bit sooner. But either way, that was a money concept, and it worked all throughout the game. And Sark came back to it because they were playing the same way. They were going to play man-to-man on that slot, and they're going to play man-to-man on that slot. I'm surprised they didn't go for a slot fade there, but why not go with an out cut that's working really well? And they combined it a lot of times with a straight drop back, which Arch is excellent at straight drop back, going back to kind of why that crisis mode works so well for him. He's a top 15, by the way, in Pro Football Focus passing grade and Pro Football Focus offensive grade in straight drop back situations. So I love that targets to motion and that deep out cut was two examples where he just played the hits and it worked all throughout the game for him.
Interesting. All right, we're going to talk about the defense next, Rod B. So prepare yourself for that. But first, we want to say thank you to Duck Camp. Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for Saturday kickoff. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does a long day of tailgating. The sun protection shirts and the hoodies, they keep you cool or warm during early season scorchers or fall afternoons. To their iconic Game Series hats that I love to wear all the time, they feel like instant classics. Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there and stay out there and hook them. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com. I also want to mention they are offering On Texas Football users a big-time deal. Use code ONTexas25 for 25% off. That's ONTexas25 for 25% off of your order at duckcamp.com, one of the best clothing apparel companies you're ever going to see. I love their stuff and wear it all the time here around the house. All right, Rod, defense. I think that a lot of fans were shell-shocked the first 45 minutes of this football game, right? Yeah. Through three quarters. Mississippi State ran the ball, throwing it, passing it, and running it up and down the field on the Longhorns for the first three quarters. And then things changed. Texas started getting after the quarterback. You wrote to me, I want to talk about Anthony Hill and his deployment later in this game. What exactly is it that you want to talk about with Anthony Hill?
But first of all, he had a monster game, right? Was it 2.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, 9 pressures. But this is the beauty of that, those 9 pressures that he ended up having. They had him on 18 pass rush snaps. Now you were like, 18 pass rush snaps, is that a lot? For Anthony Hill, that's a lot. That's the most he's had this season. He had 13 pass rush snaps versus Kentucky. Last year, his high in any game was 11. In 2023, he had 14 in a game and 13 in a game. So, and we've talked about how he needs to be weaponized more as a pass rusher, either from the second level or on the edge. I felt like this game, PK made it a priority, especially late in the game, to use Anthony Hill as a weapon of havoc. Bringing him and on early downs too, not always on just on third downs, but on early downs, almost run blitzing Anthony Hill, shooting gaps with him, and it worked really well. I mean, he had 2 sacks, 2.5 sacks, 5 quarterback hurries, 2 quarterback hits, and like I said, it was only out of 18 pass rushing opportunities where he was able to create that kind of havoc. So the hope is that this continues for Anthony Hill. Now, I think it was specific to the situation because they were driving the football. Texas secondary was really leaky in coverage. And I think, PK decided, I'm going to force the issue here. I'm not going to let Blake Shapen sit back there and pick us apart. So he forced the issue, get the ball out of his hands. But the blitz was really effective for PK. They blitzed on 21 of the dropbacks for Mississippi State. And 5 of the 7 sacks came via the blitz. They ended up with, you look at Blake Shapen's stats, he 3.7 yards per attempt versus the blitz. The pressure to sack percentage ended up being over 40% via the blitz. So when you blitzed and you did get a pressure, you had a pressure to sack percentage of over 40% because you got 5 sacks. So it worked really well. And hopefully this is a trend that continues with PK, knowing that this could potentially be a vulnerability for the defense. Because if you look at percentage of dropbacks where PK blitzed, I believe this is the second highest percentage of dropbacks this season where PK brought the blitz. So I think it's a good sign that he's evolving a little bit and being more aggressive. You can't leave those DBs out there, exposed too much, especially when you're defending really, really fast guys on the outside like Mississippi State had and a quarterback who is more than capable in Blake Shapen.
You wrote that the Texas defense is still having some trouble, though, in pass defense to me. You said, quote, Texas is having trouble defending TEs, crossing routes, and quick game. What do you mean? We all know what the quick game is, but is there a reason for that in your mind that you've kind of formalized?
Yeah, it was just easy completions. If you look at Blake Shapen, and just looking at just like I said, easy completions, quick game for him, 0 to 9 yards. So right after line of scrimmage, before 10 yards, he was 78% completion percentage, 18 of 23. He actually averaged. How about this? He averaged 11 yards per attempt on
quick game.
On quick game. Why? Because of the yak yardage. They had 223 yards after the catch. Now, Booth had a lot of that on that one, but there were opportunities, I think, for Texas to really close the gap on receivers, and I think they were playing very conservatively and playing off a little bit too much. And so you gave up the quick game because you didn't want to get beat over the top with those speedy wide receivers, which I understand. And Texas plays a lot of zone, so they play with their eyes, so they need to see everything, so they're not playing too close to the wide receivers, but also the tight ends. The tight ends are starting two back-to-back weeks, right? Kentucky used their tight ends really well too. 19 targets to tight ends.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? 14 receptions for 141 yards, by the way. Getting some yardage. 9 first downs and 2 touchdowns. You know who's got really good tight ends?
Vanderbilt. They do. They have a pair of tight ends.
Yes.
Everybody knows about Eli Stowers, but they've got another one as well. Mm-hmm. And so you're saying, hey, Texas got to pay attention to that a little bit better
because they're trying to attack the linebacker depth in coverage, and teams are doing a really good job of that. And that's why you're getting a lot of the crossing routes too, because this is to attack the same area. Tight ends are attacking that area, the linebacker depth, intermediate area, and that's where those crossing routes are also come into play. I went and looked at the crossing routes; they were 11 yards per attempt when they threw crossing routes against Texas and Mississippi State was 66% first down touchdown rate, explosive play rate of 33%. The crossing routes have worked a few weeks in a row. I guarantee you Vanderbilt's putting that on their game plan, along with their tight ends and along with the quick game that Texas is going to play soft coverage, and they're going to give you that easy underneath completion, that slant, that hitch. They're going to take it. They're going to take it. And it may be just a slight adjustment by the quarterback and the receiver, like, hey, he's 9 yards off, guys. Let's go. And so I'm not saying that Texas can't play off, but they can't retreat and take themselves out of the play when they're playing off. So they need to be, if you're going to play off, retreat a little slower, inch out of there, not just try to bail out and give those receivers those easy completions. So it's not anything, I think, that is debilitating, but teams are going to follow that game plan. They'd be crazy not to. Tight ends, crossing routes on Texas, quick game on Texas, and they're attacking the same DBs also in the secondary. Why wouldn't you? You got a true freshman back there, and then they're going after Gilbo, and that's been the case for the last month. I mean, pretty much everybody attacks the same guys, and so will Vanderbilt.
Rod, I got one final question. You're a former special teams player. Mm-hmm. You did it at Texas, did it in the NFL. Question I have for you: Ryan Niblett. It's not just him back there making plays. No. So he's certainly the focal point. It is a team of guys now that are really starring and becoming a major emphasis for this team. And look, where would Texas be these last 3 weeks without the return game and the punt return game of Ryan Niblett and that group? Is it anything in particular you're seeing other than Niblett's growing confidence? Steve Sarkisian called him courageous.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're seeing that they're doing really well on special teams that's kind of opening up those returns?
I'm with you. I think it's the guys blocking for him are doing a good job. Basically the hosters, the guys who are holding up the gunners on the outside, and Kate Phillips is one of those guys.
Yeah, he got added later this year, and ever since then, it feels like they're starting to pop a few more.
I totally agree with you. And Ron Roberson's doing a good job up there. So those are the two guys holding up the gunners. And I think kind of starts with them because they know if it's returned right or returned wide. I don't know how they want to do it, or return left. It starts with those guys because those guys have to eliminate the first threat. And usually you can tell. And I was saying this was actually a really impressive performance because they didn't have Michael Taft, who's one of the MVPs on that punt return unit. They didn't have them, but they still ended up making, obviously, the game-changing play. So I'll give them a ton of credit because it's mostly it's a lot of DBs on there. So that's why I like those young. It's a lot of DBs. I think it's maybe like 4-5 DBs on that unit overall. And I like the fact that it's a lot of those young DBs and they're making a name for themselves on that team. They're taking pride in it. The pride is the key. I had a great punt returner I blocked for, Nathan Vasher, and you start realizing all I got to do is my job, and that guy will make the first guy miss and the worst guy miss, and then we got a return on our hands.
Yeah. I will say this. I've rewatched that play several times just to try to pick up little nuggets of it because, to your point, it was such a big-time play. Cade Phillips kind of walled the first guy off. Then Jordan Johnson-Rebel, another defensive back, got the guy from getting to him at the sideline. You had Warren Roberson make a block. I believe it was Ty Anthony Smith make a block. Then Marshall Landwehr came in and really knocked the you-know-what out of somebody right along the sideline to kind of keep him, give him that berth down the sideline. And then Derek Williams kind of ran interference in the last half of that. And so it was another DB, by the way. It was a big time play, and upon my own rewatch, I felt like clearly that was tremendous. I also thought that this defensive stop to end regulation, absolutely. They were at one point 4 yards from field goal range.
Yeah, they were driving. Didn't forget.
Yeah. This felt very much almost like the Jeff Levy, Dylan Gabriel. OU game in some ways, where Texas came back and had the one, and then they moved it down with a minute left in the game and still won. OU did. And Levy was the offensive coordinator at that time. But Texas's defense stood up, whether it was the weaponization of Anthony Hill. He got into the backfield. Colin Simmons knocked the quarterback down on one of those. Simmons, Simmons did not have a big stat game. But man, he's just a overwhelming.
He's a game wrecker. Yeah, he just wrecks stuff. He really does. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Rod, thank you so much, buddy. This has been going to do it for Second Watch with Rod Babers. Thanks again to our sponsor. That is duckcamp.com. If you're looking for clothes that are just absolutely awesome, from sun protection shirts that keep you warm or keep you cool in the summer, or the nice hoodies and other apparel that keep you a little bit warmer in fall. This is the brand you want to look at, duckcamp.com. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them from the folks at duckcamp.com on Texas 25. Use that code for 25% off. All right, Rod, any final thoughts before we let folks go?
No, I said the rewatch was enjoyable. Watching this team fight like hell. It was less stressful because I knew the outcome. This team that I said we've obviously been critical of this team, and I think a lot of it is justified, but there is no criticizing the heart and fight of this group. I was really impressed. I mean, just looking at it, it just seemed like a doomsday scenario. With this team down 17, and yet they just kind of clawed their way back. And it didn't happen, it wasn't, the momentum didn't switch all at, it didn't switch all at one time. They weren't able to grab it all in one or two big plays, like those kind of Sark runs we talk about. They had to chip away at it. And they never lost the faith as they chipped away at it. It was, like I said, it was a phenomenal effort by those guys, and hopefully it's something that now they believe, and they have this proof, this tangible proof that, hey guys, we can win in any type of way, and if we stick together and we play together, that the sky's the limit, pretty much.
All right, that's gonna do it. Rod Babers, thank you very much. Thank you also to our producer Matthew Hutchison. I'm Bobby Burton. We've got more tonight. Rod, you and Jerry are going to be on the live stream this evening, talking a little Longhorn football. I hope you guys enjoy that. Please get your questions in early for that. For Rod Babers, I'm Bobby. You guys have a good one. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.